Hello, 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 Ms. Zeena. How are you today?
Hi, Kasia. I'm doing really well. How are you going?
Really good. I'm so grateful to be here and be speaking with you today. Where are you dialing
I'm
in from?
connecting over from quite a bit of a way away, down under in Australia, in quite a small country regional town. So it's in between, sort of halfway between Sydney and Melbourne, Albury Wodonga. Not a lot of people have really heard of it unless they've spent some time here traveling in between Sydney and Melbourne. It's quite a popular stopover, but real small country town.
Wow. And I'm dialing in from Lisbon, Portugal. So we're literally on opposite ends of the world. And you're in the future, like so many hours ahead. So it's so great for this gift of the internet for us to be able to connect. And how we connected, actually. Excuse me?
And to finally connect.
Yes, yes. This is our second attempt as the Zoom and internet gremlins. We're not having it the other week, but so great to be here. And what we wanted to bring here to you guys today is just a genuine conversation of the topic of unconventional and redefining success and sharing a little bit of our journeys. And this is unscripted, so we're just going to have a very authentic conversation. And first things first, I just wanted to speak a bit about how we met. So we're both a part of a container, a year-long container of mostly women, which come from the professional world, many of which have started their business. So can you speak a little bit about your journey, Zeena? How did you get where you are today? How did your journey come about? How did it pivot? Tell us everything.
It's conventional, and this is why I really love Heather putting this group together and a bunch of us coming together to talk about unconventional stories, because unconventional can mean different things to different people, as we've seen with this extraordinary group of women. And absolutely, my journey has been so unconventional, and I say that from starting from really humble beginnings. I was born in California, with a bit of a turbulent upbringing. My father was a functioning alcoholic, so night times were really quite horrific. So from first memory, it's really about that alcoholism and sort of that family violence that came through. So that traveled all the way over to the UK, where I moved with my mum and my sister when I was 4, and we moved to sort of like inner London area. So really quite poor areas and crime ridden, and sort of lots of stabbings happening all over the place, drugs on every corner, lots of violence in the school. So it wasn't a very pleasant upbringing, should I say. The environment was quite heavy, and lots of big themes around poverty and violence. So that was pretty an unconventional start, I think. Anyway, my mum having to sort of leave my dad with 2 young kids and travel cross country. But as the years travelled, as we moved through the years, life got a bit more stable. As education came into it, me and my mum and sister started to thrive, started to really just settle in with each other and leaving sort of that turbulent past behind. And it was great for me to be able to move from that poverty. I think, because as a child that was always a worry, and that used to play on my mind. So to be able to have my own finances, start to move over into university, get a degree, find a career path. Marketing at the time was my chosen sort of degree subjects, and that's career I moved straight into. So I had a really successful career there in London for about 13 years, probably a bit more than that, climbing that sort of marketing, event management, client experience ladder. And what's really unconventional, I think, with this is having landed my dream job with my dream budget, dream location, doing all the wonderful things that I ever wanted to do as a child, as I dreamed of, and kind of getting there and feeling really out of alignment. And suddenly that dream that I was reaching for, striving for, I was in it, I was living it. And it just didn't feel like where I wanted to be at the time. And I suppose that was quite unconventional, because I didn't know what to do with that. And really, a lot of the triggers and things that were activating me, well, I had a lot of young people around me and my husband, sort of die and were taken away too soon, young people with illnesses, sudden accidents, and sort of being in this dream state, this dream world, dream job, and seeing all of that happen and unfold day by day. I think that's really what bumped me out of alignment, because it really made me evaluate what I had been striving for. And really deep down in my soul, I think I had just been going through the motions to get there, because it was a dream and it was a target, and I'm very driven and I'm very motivated. And when I set myself a target, I like to get there, and I got there, and all this other stuff was unfolding around me. And I just thought, I think this is where I need to be. I just didn't feel in alignment. Is any of that kind of resonating with you about that, time where you just don't feel like you are in alignment anymore?
Definitely. And how did you know? What were the circumstances, the symptoms? What were you feeling? What does out of alignment mean? And how did you know you were going through that?
Yeah, for me, I think for many years, actually, in the build up to this stage of being out of alignment, I actually was coming out of alignment, and I just hadn't appreciated, because we have busy lifestyles, busy social lives. Everything's a million miles an hour, and especially in London, everything is so busy. The corporate pace was, as well as the travel, as well as the commutes, as well as the friendships, as the social things. Everything was so fast that there really wasn't time. I didn't allow myself, I don't think, keeping busy was just a way of life, and I didn't allow myself time to really process. And going out, being quite social, there was a lot of alcohol involved, being numbed really rather than feeling it. And another activation point, I think, was the sudden death of my late father. I had a relationship with him. It was always very turbulent because of the alcoholism, but I did have a great relationship with him. But when he passed away, the tsunami of emotions that had come through, I just was hit with a wave of feelings like being hurt, being bitter, being angry. So they were really the major symptoms. If I'm going to try and pinpoint them, it was, and that's what felt out of alignment, because at my core, that they weren't really my characteristics. Even as a child, going through all sort of that hellish environment, I was still always jovial, still light, still friendly, still kind, and I didn't really see that in me anymore. All I saw was someone that was very angry, very bitter. And then my health started spiraling. Like, I just couldn't feel well. Unexplained aches and pains, IBS, you name it. All these things that are nerve pain, you name it, I had it. But there was no answer to why I had this. Doctors were like, you're fit and healthy. It's just a bit of stress. It's a bit of inflammation. Take these anti-inflammatories. Take this, take that, take that. And I thought, well, I don't want to take anything if I don't have a diagnosis. And stress, for me, what are anti-inflammatories and stress? I just didn't make that connection. I can kind of see what they were trying to go for, but that wasn't about addressing the root cause. That was just masking, and that also wasn't in alignment. But it really was those negative emotional and personality traits that were the main symptoms. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely hear you. We're so focused on the doing and having, we do all these things, busy, 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 so that we can have the success, the job titles, the beautiful houses, the money, the experiences, but we forget about the being. And sometimes it's the body that reminds us, unfortunately, when we don't pay attention, when we fall out of alignment, by surfacing these pains and, the burnout. And it's a little bit different for everyone. So I definitely hear you. And I think that's such a big symptom to pay attention to when you fall out of alignment. Because the way I look at it, it's like they say, I think it was Oprah that said, like, the universe whispers, and then it kind of starts speaking loudly, and then it starts yelling. So unfortunately, because we're so trained by society and programmed to do and have, we forget about the being piece, and the being is the mind and the body connection, right?
Yeah.
And because we're so in the world of achieving and doing, we forget to pay attention to the body, which has an intelligence of its own. So I definitely hear you. I had a similar experience as well.
Yeah, tell us about that now, because it's always the more we ask that question, I just love hearing the answers, because it can be different for everyone, but there are often similar themes too. So yeah, tell us about your coming to out of alignment, or along those lines. What happened
Sure.
for you?
So a little bit about my background. So I was born in Poland, and when I was a little girl, my parents flew me over to the US, where I lived for 20 years. And that's where I went to school, and I worked, and I had an amazing job in a marketing agency in the Willis Sears Tower, working on the 45th floor, having an amazing lifestyle. And I just felt like I was working my life away, having been born in Europe and having had many friends all over the world and only 2 weeks of vacation. It wasn't aligned for me. As much as I loved it, it
Mm.
just wasn't. I wanted to live more rather than kind of work my life away. So I packed up a suitcase, moved to Europe. And next thing I know, I was recruited by Google, where I had an amazing career. And I figured I made it, it's like I made it. That's it. Google, it's the best company in the world, some say. And I thought I'd stay there till I retire. And I was working and, getting promoted and having amazing successes, working on amazing projects, traveling and having a lifestyle that I've always dreamed of because Google unlocked a lot of the doors that were previously closed in terms of education, in terms of connections, in terms of really fulfilling my potential and having a safe space to do that. And a few years in, I started experiencing some symptoms, which I found very confusing because Google was amazing. The challenge for me is the headquarters was placed in Dublin. And having been a big city girl, having lived in Chicago, having lived in Paris, where I moved after living in Chicago, and then Dublin, it was a big shift. And for me, having a lot of free time because like you mentioned, it's a big drinking culture. And in corporates, there's a lot of high functioning alcoholics. And whether you drink at home, whether you drink, a $20 martini or whatever, it's still alcohol, right? So being surrounded by that in Dublin, that wasn't kind of my vibe. So I still went out every once in a while, but I either had that or kind of hiking. So there wasn't much to do. And when you start kind of entertaining what else could there be in life, having more of the time and headspace, I went into the world of personal development and having had learned about myself, my needs, my values, and having slowly embodied that. Because to know something, here is one thing, but then embodying it is another. And having done a lot of this deep work, which isn't taught at school, which isn't taught by your parents, which isn't a regular topic of conversation at most dinner tables, even in a place like Google, which is very self-aware, which is very focused on well-being, I started questioning a few things. And then COVID came. And
Yeah.
COVID was such a big gift for me in many, many ways. And at that point, I had already, moved to London, which is something that I wanted to do. And I just started feeling this weird feeling in my body. And I started having these pains and started being tired, especially when we started working from home. It's like my nervous system shut down. And I'm like, is this COVID? We didn't quite know what it is. We didn't quite know what the symptoms were. I just spent 2 weeks on the couch just being very, very tired. Now, looking back at it in hindsight, it was my nervous system, which kind of finally relaxed. So for me, even though, this is not a popular opinion, COVID was a big gift because it showed me how I wanted to live my life. I really enjoyed working from home. I really enjoyed working in the morning, having gone for, the 1 hour walk, which we were allowed in the afternoon, and then having come back home and just really, cooking for myself, taking care of myself, not needing to, be in the commute, especially in London, in the trains and the rush hours. And it really showed me the way that I kind of wanted to lead myself in, and I felt complete. And at some point I decided, this is it. I'm going to finish this project and I'm complete. And Google, was an amazing opportunity. And I felt guilty. I felt strange.
Mm.
I understand what was happening, but I had this knowing inside that this is it, that I'm complete. So did I quit? No. Did I leave on my own terms? Yes. Did I create a plan? Yes. So it's really this knowing when you know. And I think it's really important to listen to that because the last month at Google, my body just wasn't having it. And my fingers were getting numb, my shoulders, like I couldn't type. My body was just really sending me signals because it knew that, the end is coming. And because we were working so much, working from home, it was a global role, full on 24/7. Just my body really let me know the symptoms of like, we're done. So what was interesting is when I finished, I thought I'd be, running around London because the lockdown kind of temporarily paused, and I was so tired. And I really took a few months to decompress. I really took a few months to defragment. of all this like doing and, you know, constantly being on. And I really took my time. And I think that the body has an intelligence of our own. And if we can learn to listen to it a bit sooner and maybe make little adjustments and trying to
Yeah.
understand what it's telling us rather than making, you know, a big decision. You know, Tony Robbins says, burn your boats. I don't believe in burning your boats unless you're a very strong swimmer. So everyone has, you know, a different experience of it. And, you know, for me, it was just really being out of alignment was me putting on some extra weight, my body kind of tensing up a bit more. For me, it was just feeling a little bit anxious. And then over time, it showed up as more resistance of doing things. And I think the biggest
Mm,
symptom, I'll call it, for being out of alignment is that, you know, what I used to do just didn't feel like anything. I was launching these amazing campaigns and I was working with amazing people and I just felt nothing. You know, we
mm,
launched a big campaign working with the Selena Gomez's of the world and I just felt nothing. And that for me was
yeah.
a sign that I'm now complete with this chapter. And having worked at Google, having had my dream job of working global marketing and then in partnerships, I just felt very complete with working for someone else.
Oh my, just sending shivers down my spine because it's just such a familiar story there. And, you know, just all the things you're talking about, that feeling numbness, not being able to type, all these symptoms were also coming through with me and, you know, working on the most amazing things, but not feeling any joy there. It's just such a confronting experience, isn't it? Because all these things we're led to believe our whole lives that when we're there, we've got to embrace it, and it feels like you feel like $1,000,000, and there's glitter everywhere, and it's all sparkly and dazzling. And actually, when you're not feeling that, that can really be hard to be in that contrast. Um, but it's so interesting to, you know, how you talk about those symptoms again. And, you know, our bodies are so intelligent, you know, they're like a vehicle. We take so much more care of our appliances, our technology, our vehicles. If something's flashing, or there's a warning light on, we absolutely go and take it to a repair person. We call the company and ask what this could mean. If it's a car, we take it to a mechanic. But with our human bodies, our physical bodies, when it's shutting down in this way, we just carry on. You know, we seldom ever stop. Right, well, actually, this is the warning light. What's going on? Let's not keep driving on the freeway. Let's park on the side and call someone and find out what it could be and do something about it. So it's just it's really refreshing though to hear the other side of it, is that although we still keep going and keep pushing the vehicle, but it's that piece around alignment. And I love it when we can feel it, see it, sense it, that we're not there, and we're able to take some action to not just keep giving into it, because that's also another thing. And, you know, I put my hands up, very guilty of it for years, even though I felt like I was alignment. It was very confronting to actually do something about it. It was far easier to carry on with the pain, because we kind of get used to navigating pain to some extent, I think, and suffering, rather than actually confronting big themes and having that difficult conversation to say, well, I'm not where I thought I would be, or I've got this and actually it's not actually what I want anymore. The ridicule, the all the things, the guilt, as you said, you know, all these things come up, and it can be quite difficult. But they in themselves, I think, are symptoms, aren't they? Especially sort of when we go into like the human energetic system. This is exactly why that world resonated with me. I started to see it in black and white, you know, sort of equating emotions and physical symptoms to what was out of alignment in terms of broad themes. Did you start, when you started to feel these symptoms and out of alignment, what did you turn to support you?
Yeah, so at first I didn't know. I felt like something was wrong with me because I had this dream job, I had this career I've always wanted, which was in alignment for many years. However, having started to do a lot of the personal development work, having worked with Tony Robbins and having attended a few of his events, um, I started to change because I was surrounded by, you know, entrepreneurs. I was surrounded by people who had success in a different way than I did. So for me, what showed up is kind of feeling weird and ashamed because I should be grateful. There's so many people that have real world challenges of not being able to put food on their table or having clean water and, or not being healthy. And I was just not feeling it anymore. I just wasn't, I didn't want to be there anymore. And I wasn't sure how to navigate that because, if you would have told me I would have been a coach just a few years ago and I would have laughed at you. At some point, I thought it was the biggest BS. I'm like, what's a coach, right? And at first, I wasn't quite sure what to turn to. But what I turned to, because my energy levels were really low, and for me, another symptom that happened was because I felt this guilt, because I felt this kind of being at effect of what was happening and really wasn't quite sure who to speak to. And it's not something that I believed I needed therapy for. I thought coaching just wasn't my thing back then. So I actually turned to the world of Reiki, which a friend of mine introduced me to. I connected with an amazing girl. And she told me, she's like, hey, let's go check out this Reiki class. I'm like, the what? She's like, Reiki. And I'm like, okay, yeah, why not? I had a lot of free time. So on the weekends when I wasn't working. And ultimately that changed my world because to me, it's another language. It's like this, intellect that's available to us. And maybe you can speak a little bit more about what Reiki is because you're the expert on it. I'm just the practitioner. But that changed my
Oh,
life because whatever it is, however it works. And for me, it's not about understanding it because sometimes it's not about understanding it. It's just about doing it. It's like, can we understand the wind? Yes, maybe, but doesn't it feel amazing on your skin? Can we understand how, you know, different things in the universe work? But it's about experiencing it. And for me, like right after the first session, of having it done before starting to become a practitioner in it. And the reason I became a practitioner in it is for myself, to give myself more energy.
mm,
My life changed. Like I completely got clear-headed. I started taking better care of myself. I started going to the gym. I became like a vegan for many years, or pescatarian rather. And just everything started to change. And it wasn't an intention that I set. It was as a result of me just literally waving my hands up in the air around my body, right? Because that's all Reiki is. But maybe you can speak a little bit more about, what Reiki is and how it came about and how you use it and why you're so passionate about it.
same thing. I came about it absolutely by accident. I didn't know where to turn, and like you, I didn't want to coach. I didn't even, I'm all for coaches now. I absolutely love them. I love coaching people in this space. But at the time, I just thought, oh, there's just something wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I think I went down the Google rabbit hole. How can you fix these aches and pains that doctors can't explain? How can you feel happy again? How can you feel joy again? And this thing Reiki kept coming up again and again and again, and it was too much to ignore it. And so I secretly booked myself in for Reiki. I didn't tell anyone I was doing it. Didn't need to tell anyone. I think a bit embarrassed to be going because I didn't even know what it was, but I was just so desperate for someone to give me some help, some answers, make me feel better. I don't know what I was looking for. I was just looking for something. And I thought, well, give it a go, whatever. Went off in my lunch break, booked somewhere that couldn't be booked for a few weeks actually. And I thought that actually at that time, that meant a lot to me. I thought, oh, this is in demand, isn't it? Especially in the city of London. I thought, oh, this must be a good thing to get in. So just secretly waiting, feeling crap, waiting for this Reiki session. Went along. There wasn't any much explanation. I love that about Reiki and its simplicity. Practitioner didn't really say much, said, what brings you here? And I just said, oh, feeling like crap, blah, 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 blah. Went through all the tests. There's nothing wrong. And he said, all right, we'll just, you're going to lie down here and then you'll turn over halfway and you'll feel my hands over you. Nothing to worry about, whatever. And I was just like, okay. I was like, is it like massage, whatever? No, you're fully clothed, keep your clothes on, whatever. I was like, okay, well, we'll get started then, shall we? And I don't know what happened. It felt unusual. There was pulses, there was tingling. I don't know what happened, but it's not very clear, and I don't recall. I just remember those sensations. But I remember when I got off the table and we had a conversation, I was like, what did you do? It was just, I felt coolness all over, like layers had been peeled off. I was suddenly no longer foggy. I just felt clear and I felt human. which I hadn't felt for a very, very long time. And I tried, classic, especially at that time, working in corporate, working marketing, you need answers and you need proof and you need to know. I gave him all the things, and he was very, very patient and not condescending or patronizing. He was very vague about it. And actually, in that moment, I knew my hour was up, so I didn't want to take his time. So I left it at that and said, he said, would you like to book in again? I said, yes. When can I book in? He said, whenever you want. And I said, oh, next week or whatever. And there was no appointments. But anyway, I booked it in a few weeks' time. And I wasn't sure if I'd need it or not, but I actually went away, felt amazing for a few days. And then I didn't feel so good anymore. And I was so desperate to go back again, because I thought, whatever he did, whatever happened, I need more of that. And so I went back, and he was very, very gracious in his explanations that this was really about just connecting to your own energy, and there wasn't anything in his power he was controlling doing. It's very intuitive practice, and actually that was enough for me. I didn't want to ruin it and be gripping on those explanations, because whatever was working in that privacy of that room, when I went home, it was enough. And it's quite a big, bold statement, because usually things aren't enough for me. I need to know the how and the why. But I loved your explanation there about, do we know how the wind works, whatever. We trust that there are people out there before us that have explored, but really, do I need to know how the wind works? No. I love to feel it on my face. I feel it, and I feel vulnerable when it's too much, and I know I'm out of my territory and I need to be away from it. I know it's power, I know it's glory, I know it's beauty, and that's enough. And really, that was enough for me. And like you, I learned how to do Reiki as a practitioner, not for anyone else. I wanted it for me. I wanted to know how to make myself feel like that. And I love that about Reiki. That's often, you hear it so often with people. What took you to it? I don't think there are many people that wake up and say, well, today I'm going to be a Reiki practitioner. It was actually, no, I need to learn how to do this for me, because I've found the benefit in it. So just so magical, isn't it, to be able to find something that you can use on your own, especially when you're feeling quite heavy and out of sorts, out of alignment, to be able to bring yourself back there. As these human bodies, these vehicles that we have are amazing. The fact that how it warms us, as well as our ability to self-soothe and self-heal, just absolutely blows my mind away.
Definitely. And to this day, I practice it on myself, but I also have it done on me. And during COVID, because we were not allowed to be in person, the Reiki sessions I had to kind of help with the tension and to help with the symptoms that I had were done through the distance. So even though the practitioner was, a few miles or kilometers away, now I still work with her. She's still in London, and I sleep through all my sessions. They just tell you, at this time, you set up a date, you set up a time, you just lay down, and 2 minutes in, I'm gone. And like when I wake up, you feel like you've just had a vacation. And right away, for me at least, I feel the effects, because I feel more clear-headed. I feel like I had more energy. And even though like I'll just wake up and have a session like an hour later, I'll still go back to sleep, because whatever the practitioners are doing is just very calming. It's very calming for the mind, for the body. It's just very calming for the nervous system. And they're also able to pick up some blockages. So they're able to give you some information that, because we're in this body, sometimes there's a blind spot of, hey, go get this checked out, or hey, you probably need more of these vitamins, or drink more water, or eat more red fruits. Sometimes it's like these random things that they communicate to you that they pick up from the body, because they say that the body has an intelligence of its own, and Reiki is one of the many ways to start communicating with the intelligence of the body. And yeah, for me, it's just been a game changer. And I was actually thinking of bringing this back into my coaching practice, because it has had so many different benefits for myself. And because my business is online, I have to be done in person. And Reiki as well can be done during the sleep, right? You mentioned you had a session done while you were asleep.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So, whether I do it in person for clients or online, because Reiki, even pre-COVID, a lot of people did distant Reiki, but COVID definitely brought that as more of a preferable option to people, because you couldn't get out. And so rather than not have the sessions, people were really open to it, which I love about it, because for me, it doesn't matter whether it's in person or at distance. The energy is intelligent. Our bodies are intelligent. And, vibration and frequency is just all around us. So we are human beings made out of vibration and frequency. And so Reiki operates on that. You know, when we're sat at home listening to someone on the radio from California and we're over in Melbourne, Australia, we don't doubt that, right? Every sound travels on a frequency, our thoughts do, our vibrations do, our intentions do. And really, when you have trust and faith in that, that's no more is needed for Reiki. That's just it. It's to embrace it. And I think it's so individual for everyone. You've got to see what works for you, right? And I'm such a strong believer of that. If you try something and it doesn't work for you, no need to continuously keep going at it, right? If you try it once, try it a few times, and it's not for you, there are many ways to get to where you want. But Reiki just seems to be one of those beautiful energies that many people have the same experience of. It's just really beneficial in terms of calming your nervous system, resetting it, and for me, the more I studied into that through doing my Reiki master teacher program, doing a chakra diploma, which is what Reiki energy works on, is your human energetic system, which in Sanskrit is the chakras. Ancient civilizations were all over this. We've just not given so much attention to it. But through that deep study, I've just really got such a beautiful respect for our bodies, our energy systems, how they're regulated, and how our life experiences really affect that. But more so the energetic warning signs or the symptoms that come up. You know, it's just gold. If we have that awareness to realize something doesn't feel right, it's probably not right, and we can do some work there to explore, just to bring about more awareness and change if we desire it. It's not always about change. Sometimes we just can acknowledge it, see it, be aware of it, and think, okay, I can walk with this, I can live with this, I get it, and that's enough for me. Whereas others have that real deep empowerment to start exploring change and making huge shifts. Fortunately for me, that second approach was, it just happened. I didn't sit there and try and control what Reiki was doing to me. I was feeling better, and like you know, you're taking care of yourself better. I started taking care of myself. I was no longer out binge drinking as much. I was investing in my body. I was listening to that out of alignment call, that you're doing this work. It's great. Once upon a time you loved it, but it's out of alignment for you. Other people around you have lost their lives. If you were to lose it tomorrow, do you want to spend your time being out of alignment, or do you want to be in alignment? Having the courage then to make big, bold decisions that were all against everything I thought I would do in my life. You know, it's all massive stuff unfolding and happening, but it was happening with such ease and grace. There was no fight. There was no battle. It was just such a deep knowing. And that's why for me, oh my God, the utmost respect for Reiki energy, for discovering it, for the lows that led me to it, because with those lows, you know, there are always going to be highs. You know, that whole what goes down must come up, and boy, did it come up.
Definitely. And you know, the big buzzword out there is energy healing. So how is Reiki from energy healing, and how is it scientific? Because you know, you hear energy healing, it sounds like very woo-woo. So how is Reiki tangible, and how is it different from energy healing, or is it energy healing?
Yeah, so it's quite, energy healing is quite a big term, I think, because everything is energy. You know, from as I was saying, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, that's all energy. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not energy. You look at X-rays and UV light and things like that. These are all things that are used in science, in the medical system, and we don't have. Without a doubt, we don't question. We go with it and we acknowledge it. And I think if we can acknowledge that everything in life is energy, from our thoughts, feelings, emotions. Well, Albert Einstein said everything in life is vibration. So it's not from me. It's rooted from science. Everything is energy. And energy shows up in different ways. You got to go back to science class. You know, things can be a gas, a liquid, or a solid. A gas is invisible,
Right.
but it has energy, right? And so our, as humans, we have different energy centers, and wonderful lights. Killing photography can pick it up. It can pick up your aura, and it can pick up the state of your chakras. So all this can be done. It's just that it's not really widely talked about. It's not in the mainstream, and it still somewhat has that reputation of being a bit woo, being a bit alternative. And you know, I think a lot of people do acknowledge it, understand it, work with it, but they just don't share so much. And you know, as I started to come across it, being from a marketing background, for me it was criminal not to share. But what I like to share about it is make it more approachable. And I think what scares people off or worries them or makes them skeptical is not having the explanations there. So you know, just hearing about that gas, liquid, and solid. It takes us all back to our science classes. We can start to get closer to the idea of energy and how we have it. And so when we understand that our chakra energy can be photographed and it can be seen, all right, so we'll get a bit closer to that. And then we can differentiate 7 major chakras. We have many more, 114, I believe it is. But with the 7 ones, they govern different sets of emotions. So then we can start to get a bit closer to say, okay, I can acknowledge the theme of safety and security, of emotions and pleasure, of ego and willpower, and matters of the heart and communication. I can start to see those themes in my life. And then I can start to see with those specific themes, when I'm feeling good and in flow, the themes are of a much more sort of vibrant, more upbeat theme. Whereas when I'm not feeling in alignment, they're often heavier and more dense. So it could be things like anger, it could be rage, it could be jealousy, it could be resentment, it could be feeling unwell, it could be feeling anxious. So that on that, in that one example, you can see the different frequencies, right? Sort of being up there, bigger, higher, greater, more tranquil vibrations versus sort of the more dense. And that's how I think you can, in a nutshell, for me, it seems pretty damn logical there. How does that feel with sort of hear it broken down in those sort of bite-sized chunks? Do you find that helpful for getting close to? Obviously you're invested in energy because Reiki works for you, but in terms of taking it further, how does that feel for you?
I think that, it's definitely based on science, and I think you explained it very well. And I know there's a lot of studies being done now, in laboratories, and getting it documented in terms of the energy and the impact on the body, and how different non-traditional, I don't want to say medicine, but solution, right? Because you're not claiming to heal anything, right? Whether through Reiki or rather through, right? But even in my coaching practice through neurolinguistic programming, I have a case study where I had a client who had heart tremor that was a result of a divorce and that lasted many years. And I'm not claiming to heal anything. However, we have weeks of data both on Fitbit and Whoop in terms of metrics of the heart. And then through the session, which lasted an hour and a half, and then for the next weeks, how it evened out. And it's studies like this that people can even run on themselves. You can have a Whoop, you can have a Fitbit, and look at the metrics, look at your sleeping patterns, look at whatever you measure. And coming from Google, I like to measure everything, right? Like I go to the gym every day, I measure how much I lift, like my weight, because that's the best way to manage it. But just looking at these things, because a lot of it is untangible, a lot of it is an internal shift. And me having worked with the internal world of the mind body, and more of the being rather than the doing and the having, it's these ways you can measure that. And it shows up as better sleep quality, it shows up as a calmer nervous system, it shows up as making better choices. It really shows up in small ways that we can take for granted, because now we want like these big rewards, these big changes. Yeah, like going to the gym, if you want to lose 20 pounds, you can chop off your arm, right? But that's not the way we want to do it. That's not sustainable. You show up, every day, every other day, or how many every times a week you go, and the changes are gradual. And what I love about Reiki or any healing work is that you feel the benefits right away. And it's good to, get it done every once in a while. So for me, when I get like a little bit stuck, when I feel like I hit this like invisible wall of energy, like I'm either low on energy, or I'm trying to break through. Breakthrough Methods is my company. Break through to kind of like the next idea, breakthrough to kind of putting the things together. And my methods are a methodology based on science, based on the thought leadership of the best experts in the world. I'm trained by the best, and really putting them and testing them and creating methods based on brain science, based on neuroscience, neuroplasticity, connected with the language, connected with a little bit of energetics, because we are, always giving off energy. And it's really interesting for me how the shifts are small, but they're big, because sometimes you feel it body, because there's a lot of trapped energy in your body. So I work with what are called life force particles. So when you ask the right question to the unconscious mind, because as you might know, 90+%, there's different statistics around it because nobody knows for sure because everyone is different, is unconscious, but it's unconscious. And the conscious mind, it's about working consciously with the unconscious mind. So when you ask the right question and kind of reprogram how things work, you feel it in your body. And that use
Yeah.
case was just an example of the power of the mind that it has over the body. Now, I'm not claiming to heal anything, right?
Yeah.
But is it possible? Yes. Do I have proof? Yes. So in
Yeah.
terms of Reiki, how would someone know that they could use a session? Like what are some symptoms that someone could be experiencing? For me, it's kind of like the stuckness. Like, is this
Yeah.
invisible? Does this feel heavy? It's like, oh, there's just something around that I can't quite, I don't know what it is, but it's not something that the gym can solve or another coffee. It's just like
Yeah.
this invisible kind of like veil of like
Something.
energy. Yeah, I call it the and I'm
Yeah.
like, I need a Reiki session.
I love that. I love that description of that, because that's exactly when I will ensure I'll get myself a session that day if I'm feeling that way. And I love how you describe that. And actually, that's how a lot of people turn to it, because they just it's not always as obvious as anything more than that. That's a very common way of feeling. But I've got together a checklist of symptoms actually by each of the different energy centers, and there's a beautiful description of what absolute alignment looks like and what overactive or underactive energy looks like, and actual symptoms. So it's a very practical resource. So I can whiz that over to you if you want to have a look at that. And if anyone wants that free symptom checklist, then I've got it. I can just whiz it over. It's a beautiful resource. I definitely check in with that once every couple of weeks or so. Just as as life gets busy, we can be complacent and not always be mindful all the time. And especially if I'm feeling that sort of something's just not quite right, definitely reach for that checklist. Look at the 7 different energy centers, tick off where I am on them in terms of being in absolute alignment versus now I'm maybe a 5 out of 10 today or whatever. And those numbers are practical for me because it's all my feeling, right? I know when I feel like a 10 out of 10, I know when I feel like a 5 out of 10. And it just helps me. And I can look at a list of things, 5, 6, 7 things, and say, yeah, I'm like 4 out of 5 of those. Boy, something's not right. And so it can be as easy as that. But I love your case study there on the heartache and the heart trauma translating to physical symptoms. This is absolutely where the work of energy healing and chakras comes into its own. I had a book published on this last year, and I go into detail on those energy symptoms and how these things can show up. And time after time with clients, I'm still amazed at the work and being able to identify this and seeing the shifts and the changes in the client. When they're sort of in and out of the medical system, for example. Medical disclaimer here: I'm not a medical practitioner. I'm not. But when someone comes to you for something that isn't medical, because vibrational medicine and medicine are 2 very different things, and I acknowledge that. So when someone comes in and says, I've been having these issues, whatever, it's very clear that this is not a medical session. I'm not going to give you any diagnosis, but let's take not having periods, for example. That can relate to a sacral chakra imbalance. So sometimes even we don't even have that conversation. I'll say, this is where I feel the energy is not there, and they'll be like, yeah, that's right, I haven't had my period for about 6 months. A few sessions in, few Reiki sessions in, while out, periods turn up and they're regular. Now, am I going to sit there and claim I can make your periods come back? No, because that might not have been for this individual, that was what happened, but that might not be for someone else. For someone else, it might actually just be forgiving yourself and having letting yourself off the hook for something in your heart space that then releases your sacral, which is all about your emotions. So it can be very logical, but I think also as well, it can be quite mystical, because the human body does what the human body does, and a lot of it is really governed by what goes on up here. And that is so individual for everyone. But it's beautiful to see the results unfolded. And really, that's why it's just in my heart, in my energetic toolkit, why I love doing this work. It's so beautiful seeing people not suffer anymore for whatever suffering looks like for them. It's obviously different for everyone, but being able to see those small changes, seeing quality of life improve, it's just such a magical feeling.
Definitely, and the way I work with energy is oftentimes
Yeah.
a client will have a shock. So a shock, I don't want to call it trauma because I think that's the wrong term.
Yeah.
We'll have a shock, and that can be getting fired or a divorce or someone saying something stupid to you, a pet passing away. We have all sorts of different shocks, and our loved one passing away. And it doesn't have to be something big. It can be a small shock. And a lot of these shocks happen in our early years, because from the years of 0 to 7, we don't have this critical faculty to kind of protect ourselves from things that, you know, are not really true. And that's why we believe in Santa, because we don't have this critical faculty in our brain developed yet that says like, hey, how can Santa go around the world in one night and give presents, right? We just don't think like that. It's like everything that is around us, we take it as the truth, whether it's, you know, the Disney movies that we watch, whether it's the way that we're parented, the, you know, what we're taught in school, we just take it in, we're little sponges. And what happens is sometimes we have a shock when we're little, whether it can be believing that, you know, even though the parent is just in the other room, that the child feels abandoned, and that will create an abandonment mood that we live then with, because as we grow, it grows with us, right? So there's all these different shocks that can happen, but we don't remember it here, but our body remembers. Because, you know, whenever you have an emotional response, like when you're happy, right? And sometimes a shock can be when you're excited because, you know, you just drew something really beautiful for your parents and they're like, don't leave me alone, right? Versus celebrating it.
Mm,
It can be anything and everything. And I've seen it in so many different ways. One of the ways I've seen it is one of my clients, she had trouble showing up in public. She's a coach and she had trouble going live. She had trouble speaking on stages. She had trouble posting on social media. And that was a shock that happened when she was little. She didn't want to be seen because she was in school,
mm,
and you know how like when you're little you wear the Converse that made like a little noise and all the kids are like, oh, and she was
yeah,
horrified. She was horrified. You know, imagine a shock like that, which is, you know, and a not typical shock, but it happens. And as an adult, you're not going
yeah,
to remember it. It's just like, I don't know what happened, because their brain deletes, distorts, and generalizes, right? So having gone into the unconscious mind, and, you know, as a coach, I don't go back into the past. We don't talk about the past. We go there for a very brief minute to get a memory,
mm,
learning, and then we work with that. But I don't talk about the past. As a coach, I'm focused on the present and the future. Going to the past, if we need to
mhm,
go something and reframe it, rework it, get some learnings, because our brain, it's always storing information, and there's certain ways that it stores it. So when you can pull out the file, kind of clean it up a bit and learn a few things, perhaps get a different learning from it, and perhaps reframe that
mm.
memory from a different angle, and then reinstall that same memory into the current version of you, the results are amazing. And oftentimes it's an energy block in the body. And will have a client sitting there just like you are, and I'll ask a series of questions, and all of a sudden they're sweating, and all of a sudden they're just like, oh, I'm so uncomfortable. They're moving, they're squirming, they're just like, what's going on? And I'm like, we're moving energy. They're like,
Oh
whoa. And
my
I'm,
goodness.
I got you, you know? And it's just all
Right.
this that's trapped in the body. And once you release it, it's just, they just like go. And
Wow.
it's so many different ways to work with the energies. And the way I work with it is by speaking, just by working with neuro-linguistic programming and really understanding, getting to the root of where that energy entrapment is. And it's memories that trap it.
Yeah,
And you
absolutely.
don't remember
Oh,
what it is, but they say the body keeps score, right? So definitely. So for me, it's about having multiple modalities. And
yeah.
industry, it's very unregulated. You know, someone goes, I see it all the time. They go to a Tony Robbins event and it's like, okay, I'm a life coach, right? We see it all the time. Zero qualifications. It's like, no, I'm empowered. I have no
Yeah.
certification. You know what? I got this result in my life, so I'm going to go out and coach, which I think is great. At the same time, I think it's very incongruent and very irresponsible. So
Mm, mm,
Mm, you know, and funny enough, just a quick story, the way I started coaching was my Reiki teacher. She gifted me as a gift for Christmas to her three daughters. So I was a Christmas gift. She gifted them each an hour of my time, and she's like, you can help them. And I'm like, me? You got to be kidding me. I'm not a coach. She's like, you have something. So she saw the gift in me. But then I started, you know,
yeah.
getting more things and, you know, still learning, now getting into the world of somatics, which is understanding how the body is connected to the mind, having understood how the mind works. So there's always learnings. So if someone is looking for a Reiki practitioner, what should they look for? Is there like a certificate? Is there a credential? Is there like a golden standard of a
Yeah,
stamp that approves all Reiki
I
practitioners?
think yeah, so it's different all over the world. So the qualifications are not that they seem to be from my experience and what I've seen, very very similar and very consistent. That there is a Reiki level 1, like level 2, and then you go on to do your master. Now, the length of time that you spend training, doing each can vary, and it varies on the practitioner. For example, for me, I love to, if I do a Reiki level 1 for someone, I like to give them at least 6 months to a year before they go to level 2. Whether it's to learn for themselves or work with other people. That's my standard. It's not what I was told to do. You can do whatever you want. You can do 1, 2, and then go straight to master. I just, on my own experience, I think it takes time to respect the energy, to embody what it is to be a Reiki practitioner. It comes with some 5 beautiful principles, which are a way of life. And for me, if you've just discovered them, I think it's a very tall order to expect someone to embody them overnight. And that's why I like to really allow that time. So the levels are key. And I think if you're going to look for someone, you can have a level 2 practitioner, because at level 2, the insurance can kick in, which is fantastic. It's good to have a practitioner that has insurance. So I would check that they are insured, so that, because a lot of people can do Reiki and they do it intuitively, but not a lot of people have the discipline and the respect of business and structure and safety. And I think insurance is key. And so making sure that they are insured, firstly, will make sure that the insurance company has done due diligence on certificates and things like that. So that takes it out of your mind. Now, whether you go for a Reiki master, teacher, or a level 2, I think it's entirely up to you. And energetics, meeting the practitioner, seeing their work online as well. Easily these days, you can see if they have reviews, if they have testimonials, but you get vibe. And I think all of this, because it's energetics, it's important to just gel with who you're going to be working with. So I think go trust on gut instinct. Now, with regards to associations, they're different all around the world. For me personally, it's nice when you are aligned to other practitioners, but whether you are or not, I don't see that as a big deal breaker. I think just having that qualification and certification to know that they're going to be sticking to a practice that's taught and been respected since early 1900s. I think that's important, as well as that insurance side. And then thirdly, just ensuring they vibe. Yeah. How about for you, for the work that you do? What would you suggest to people if they're wanting to explore how and where their emotions live, and working on and releasing that energy through life force energy? What would you suggest to them if they were looking for a practitioner?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to, because a lot of my business, I've been coaching them full time since I left Google for over 2 years, and 90% of my business is referrals. So it's really looking at the testimonials, it's really looking at the results that others have had, the experience they have had. But also looking at, honestly, nobody really asks me for certificates, just because I find that when you speak with someone and you're able to answer all their questions, you're able to, I have them available. I literally had them lined up in the background, but I'm like, you know what, that's not my vibe at the moment. But I think people can really pick up in terms of, how well versed you are in something, and that you have a plan. So yes, of course, there's certifications. I'm in the process of pursuing now because I've pivoted for freedom coaching now to self-leadership. So now I'm in the process of pursuing like the golden standard, right? Of coaching with the International Coaching Federation. But having been trained by the likes of Tony Robbins, Peter Crone, there's just so much. I literally could have had a house by now with the amount of money and time and energy invested into learning. And really, just I think the biggest thing is being the embodiment of what you teach. And I'm in the process of launching I started off with one program, and I've created multiple, but the first program that I'm going to be launching is the power within, because I found that that's the missing puzzle piece. We all focus on the strategies, we all focus on the having. And, we're having these beautiful houses and cars and, luxury purses and experiences, but then we're doing things that we don't necessarily love, being in jobs that are not aligned, being in a career that we think we're supposed to be doing, doing things within our days, within our energy and time, which to me is the biggest resource. You can always make more money. You can't get your time back. And energy, once it's depleted enough, because we're not taking care of ourselves, then it's really hard, and it takes a lot of time to get that back. So for me, it's all about focus on the being, like, who are you being? Because you can still do and have all the amazing things that you want. But when you grow, just how I shared my stories, like when I started the personal development work, I changed. And it's about the awareness of your values changing, of being aware of your needs and fulfilling them in a functional versus dysfunctional way, right? Because we all have a need for significance. But if the significance is the result versus the goal, it shows up differently in what it is that you're doing. Because for me now, having
Mm.
been working on this program for many, many months, having completed these lengthy one-on-one containers because I wanted to pivot my business model to kind of make it more like a restaurant menu. It's like you want one coaching session, you want a group program, you want a 3-monther, pick what you need because I believe in my clients, I trust my clients. And if someone doesn't need to be in a 3-month container, why would I make them do that? Because that's what is right for me, right? So, as our mentor says, it's about everything being for me, for you, for us. And what I realized is that my business was for them and for us, but it wasn't for me,
Mm.
because then I used all my energy to work on their business, on their careers, and my clients have had amazing results. And at the same time, I had very little energy and time for myself, right? So having pivoted that and having taken the time I need to reinvent myself, having taken the time to me get coaching, me get more Reiki, me have all this work that I do on my clients, right? As I take my business and scale it to the next level, um, it really comes down to being congruent with what you do. And for me, because I don't really I haven't had a website, I haven't had been promoting all these programs and coaching that I've done. Literally, people came to me. It's like, what happened? You did something different. Kasia, go to Kasia. She's got you. You're right. That's kind of how I had my business and how it grew. But now I'm ready to make my work scalable to more people. And I love this conversation because I believe that whether it's Reiki or whether it's chakra work, it really unlocks a lot of energy. And the being starts with the energy, right? The woo woo of,
Mm.
soul and us, walking around and this meat suit aside, right? We're not going to go into the spiritual realm of this, but it's the being. How are you being? Are you being stressed out? Are you being content? Are you being tense? Are you being anxious? Like, how are you being as you're doing, right? Because what is
Yeah.
the point of having if you're doing things that you don't love and enjoy most of the time, right? Because success is not 100% pleasure. And,
Yeah.
as humans will do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure because that's how we're designed with this reptilian brain of ours, right? So success is not just pleasure, 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 right? It's about doing the things that maybe are not pleasurable, but oftentimes the unpleasurable take over the pleasurable, right? So then what shows up is because we do these things that we don't want to, then in our life, we try to get that pleasure back because we can't find it in something that we do on an everyday basis, Monday through Friday. And that shows up as binging, drinking, shopping, overeating, being in toxic
Yeah.
relationships, tendencies, because we can't meet our needs in the 40-hour or how many ever hours you're working, right? So for me, it's about the being and really understanding your values and being driven by your core values and being driven by your
Yeah.
needs, and not just the needs of food, shelter, and water, but the emotional needs, the human needs that we have, and being able to fulfill them in a sustainable way. Because one of the, as I mentioned, coming back full circle, is the need for significance. And we were all, in the grade school, and the kid in front of the classroom going, teacher, teacher, I know the answer, has the same need for being seen and being significant as the kid in the back of the classroom throwing spitballs at the teacher, meeting that need in an
Mm-hmm.
unsignificant way, because they're both getting attention, right? Just one is
Yeah.
functional and one is, as defined by society, dysfunctional, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes when we don't meet our needs the right way, we do these functional things. And this is what I'm, literally obsessed with. It's like, if you know what to do, why aren't you doing it? And it starts with the being. And I believe that
Mm.
piece of who are you being? Because if you're not embodied in who you're being, the success will crumble. So you could be doing the next thing you're chasing and you're burned out because there's no.
Yeah.
So for me, it's all about the power within.
Such a
And
nice way that you put it.
thank you. And it's about being like at cause and not at the effect. And so many of us are living at effect of our time, of our circumstances, of the money we make, of everything and anything, of the relationships, of our upbringing. So it's really about unlocking that power within unlocking all more energy because of, you know, the trapped life force particles, because of the experiences that we've had, just removing all that out of the way, which unlocks your full potential.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
have success, we do need that energy.
Hmm.
And yes, you know, rest is important, nutrition is important, you know, getting hydrated is important. That's all important, but that's just the fundamentals. But there's so much more available to you. And I believe Reiki is
Oh,
a
absolutely.
a lot of that. And whether, you know, you do that in person or whether you do that over Zoom, because energy has no
Yeah.
distance, it's such a great tool. So I would definitely invite anyone that, you know, is watching this, that this conversation resonates with, to maybe get in touch with you or find a local practitioner, whatever is aligned
Yeah,
with.
absolutely.
So how would someone get in touch with you? Where do they find you? Where do they get your checklist?
Oh, you can get your checklist. So you can message me either directly through Facebook or Instagram, Chakras Balanced. And the website is also the same. So it's www.chakrasbalanced.com. And the checklist is actually on the website. So if you head over to the chakras section halfway down the page, you can download that PDF for absolutely free. And there's always a link in there to book in time with me if anyone wants to have a chat, is excited about this. Like you know, Kasia, I've had to pivot over the years, I think, just to be able to meet more demand and need, you know, not having to force people into a 12-week program, not having to force people into just one option, or block bookings. There's just absolute flexibility. You know, if someone's wanting to dip their toe, they can do one session, they can do a free call. If somebody knows that, oh my God, this is the work for me, I need to figure out where my energy is off balance, what caused it, how to work through it, then there's a 12-week container. You know, that blueprint for chakra mastery that I run is my most favorite thing, because you get really intimate, get to know people's life story in an intimate way, and I think that's a beautiful way to provide ongoing support. So that's how you find me. Let us know how we can find you.
Ooh, so
And
I'm in the process of launching. So the first program I'm launching is The Power Within. It's about the being. And then I have two more. Maybe I can make an exception and talk about it here. So the second one
yeah.
is The Leader Within, which is about the doing, leading yourself. And the third one is The Success Within. So I
Mm-hmm.
work with the being, doing, having framework, because a lot of us just do things backwards, because that's how we're taught, as I mentioned. You know, we're having all these beautiful things, doing things we don't want. As a result, we're stressed. And I believe starting on the inside out, because your external world is a result, is a reflection of your internal world. And I'm not thinking about the chaos or, you know, the typical kind of conversations that you would hear around this, but really, you know, how are you feeling? How are you experiencing life? Because you can still be doing things, even though you might be pivoting your career and you might want to stay in a career, but you might want to enjoy it a bit more. And that starts with the being. And
Mm-hmm.
it's about self leadership and really being able to decide and make decisions that are aligned for you. And that comes with awareness from the being. So, being for me is all about the emotions. It's all about, you know, understanding who you are and how you work and who do you want to be, by taking a look at
Mm-hmm.
who you're being. And that's not just the identity piece. So this is going to be a really exciting program that I'm excited to launch, followed by the Leader Within and the Success Within, because I believe that when we are being the right person for us, based on what it is that we desire, based on our knowing, based on really what it is that we want, which starts with being honest with ourselves, because so many of us are living lives that are not ours. You know, we were kind of, and I did that as well. You know, I studied finance. I didn't love finance. Um, but it's like, you know, it'll get you a good job. It'll make the parents proud. It's what everyone else is doing. You know, it's where the good money is. I got to pay off the school loan. So oftentimes you find exactly yourself doing things that once you start doing them, it's not it. Because
Yeah.
we make decisions from the outside in versus inside out. So it's really about tapping more into your potential. It's really unlocking that potential through a lot of your intuition, and really learning to listen to your body, learning to listen to yourself rather than the outside, and making decisions for yourself from a place of empowerment, and really this power within, taking back the power that we give away to authorities, that we give away to, we outsource it to other people. We just give it away in
Mm.
many ways that we're not even aware of. And there's nothing selfish about it.
Yeah.
more power you have, the more of an impact you can have, the more you can actually support others. But
That's
oftentimes,
it. Magic.
yeah, oftentimes what we're left with is whatever we have left over at the end of the day versus tapping into
Mm,
the power and then
and the,
sharing out. So
uh,
yeah, looking at energy leakages. Oh my goodness, this program is going to be amazing. So the best way
oh,
to connect with me is either yeah on LinkedIn, depending on what platform you're in. Kasia Szczesniak. I'll link everything somewhere here.
yeah.
Or on social media. So you can also find me on Facebook under my name. Breakthrough Methods is the name of my company. So you can find that.
Ah,
And
cool.
yeah, also on Instagram. So I'm the Breakthrough Architect. That's my kind of behind the scenes, sharing my learnings, my journey, the behind the scenes of the launch, which I just feel like at this point I have a digital baby within me, literally 9 months in the making because I wanted to get it right. So I need like a cesarean soon because it's coming, it's coming. And
Oh,
you know, when it's like this is it, it's like, wait, just one more thing. But yeah, it's coming. It's coming. I'm so excited. And then the actual content for the company itself for the launch, that's going to be at Breakthrough Methods. So I'll link everything somewhere here. And yeah, so this has been an amazing we were going for 20 minutes. We actually spoke for I think an hour. I at some point I forgot we're recording just because we're having such a great chat, having so much in common and really, you know, just talking about the powers that are available to us, the powers of energy, of really unlocking it. And I believe Reiki is such a beautiful method to explore. And the best way to explore it
mm,
is, yeah, you might want to Google a thing or two, but I think the best way to do that is, you know, either set up a session with yourself or if it's more aligned, you know, in person, because someone might want to do it in person first.
yeah,
And honestly, it's for me, Reiki and sound bath. Sound bath is like when they play the singing bowls. I sleep through the whole thing. It's an expansive little nap, but it's okay. It's the best nap ever. Because you know, your body is
beautiful.
like 2% water and whatever is happening, it's just so relaxing. I can never stay awake through the thing ever. I don't know what it is, but and I wake up, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, you're just a different person, a different being, a different experience
Um,
who you are,
yeah.
different experience of your
Yeah.
reality and what's available to you. Because, you
Yeah.
know, when we kind of get numbed to the everyday doing and having, you're blinded by everything else
Yeah.
that's available, the freedoms,
100%.
options, the beauty of life.
All of that, and I just love how many ways there are to get to the other side of it, though. You know, when the symptoms turn up and the alignment, you out being out of alignment, you're there. You know, just there's so much reassurance that there are many ways to get there, and it's just about finding that method, that practitioner, that support, that network that aligns. And I think that that's the number one thing. If anyone's resonating with these conversations, with these symptoms, these ways being at this stage of life, then you know go internal if you can, explore a few things, and the proof that you want is going to be in your experience. So don't spend too much time dwelling, hesitating. You know, do your due diligence, do your research, pick a credible reputational practitioner, and just test and learn. That's it. You know, we've got to see what works, and soon enough you'll find it and get back to that alignment.
Definitely. And one last question for you, Zeena. So, success. What does success mean to you at this stage of your life, at this stage of your being?
Success at this stage of my life means not compromising and not settling. And I think that by that I mean not settling for that period of being out of alignment. If I'm out of alignment, taking note of it, feeling it, understanding it, and getting to where I want to be, because I'm not about settling. So that's what success is now meant to me. And to have that bravery to acknowledge if I've invested a lot in something and it's no longer right, it's okay to walk away from it. There's no shame in it. So that I think that just embodying that alignment is absolutely what success means to me. How about you? What would you say success means to you?
Well, you know, I want to say not having an alarm clock in the morning is the best.
So
Success is good for me, but kind of. But for me, it's really being able to, live life on my terms and have a business that feels exciting, that I feel aligned with, that is really an extension of who I'm being and allows me to really connect and meet amazing people like yourself. And really just living my life in alignment that is true to me, that is true to my values, that feels good, that where I can follow my knowing. I moved to Lisbon a year ago, booked a one-way flight without ever being here. And that felt aligned. That for me was success, being able to pick up and move and try something new and just really being at cause of my time, of how I'm spending my time, where I'm investing my time, being at cause of my health, having the time and the space to take care of myself by getting education, by getting, going for a walk, by going to the gym. For me, it's really about these fundamental needs and fulfilling them in a way that is fulfilling. And what I'm doing, what I found in the recent months, because I've stopped taking on clients, is that the fulfillment for me has nothing to do with money. It has to do with really me
Mm,
doing love. And that is the most fulfilling. So that when you put the additional like results, right, the
yeah,
having, when you get the being right, and that is the foundation, get the doing right as a result of the being, the having is just like one big extra. That's not the
yeah.
goal, right?
Oh
and
my
and
God.
that has been the biggest pivot. That for me has been the biggest shift, because my entire life, my entire career is the having the launch, having
Mm,
having the paycheck, having the promotion, having the job title, having the team, having the budgets, having, but then doing things that will just stress me out at a level that was just not sustainable for my body over time.
mm,
That wasn't always the case, right? And that starts with
yeah,
the being, with the awareness of, okay, if I'm out of alignment, what do I need to do? And that might be a little tweak. It doesn't
mm,
mean quitting your job and starting your own business. For others, it might be just dialing back on your hours, putting some boundaries in place, better communication skills, um,
yeah.
working an 80% role, or changing a company, changing a role within a company. That might be, something that I do, because being in Lisbon, the beaches are busy on the
Cool.
weekend, first world problems, but taking a Wednesday off and like a Monday off, right? And just really being at cause of my time, being at cause of how I spend my days, making the most of each day. So for me, success is really feeling good on the inside. It's
I
about
love
being,
it.
it's about just enjoying my day, enjoying whether I'm working all day or whether I'm coaching or having this, just enjoying the process.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
It's success for me.
Sounds like absolute bliss. Thank you for sharing that. It's so beautiful. Love it.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you to all of you who watched this far. We really intended for a little bit of a shorter
I,
conversation, but this is what happens when we're time rich, I say.
I,
So thank you for everyone
I,
who watched this far, and please don't hesitate to reach out. And definitely follow me. I'll have a free masterclass coming up to share more details on the power within. That's coming up. And I'm so excited to bring this to the world, make my work more accessible. And anyone that is interested in Reiki, please do download the checklist to see if you have the symptoms, and seek out Zeena if you feel called to get a Reiki treatment through distance, or if you're in Australia. And yeah, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. And what an unconventional journey we've each had. What an unconventional way of working we each have. And what an unconventional way of perception of, what success is, what it isn't, and how to get more energy other than, this magical liquid of coffee.
I've gone for water today. It's end of the day. If I had a coffee, I wouldn't get to bed. So I've had to switch to the hard stuff.
Because you're in the future now. No, here it's 10 a.m.
Oh,
It's
7:30.
isn't it? In your part of the world. You're like, you guys are like, yeah, in the future.
Yeah.
So so amazing. But you got to love the internet and this gift that, as energy, the waves are traveling. We don't see it, but it's there connecting us so we can have this conversation and make it accessible to those of you who are watching. And yeah, we don't have to understand everything to get the benefits of it, right? It's
That's
best
it.
to
That's it.
experience it. Like we're experiencing this conversation without needing to understand how the internet is
Yeah.
interneting, which I genuinely do not understand. So
I'm all right with not knowing.
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
happy that we can. Yeah, thank you for your time today. It's just been so beautiful to connect and talk, and like literally I could talk to you for hours. But we can't keep everyone here forever this time.
Yeah. But if you guys have any questions, do reach out, and yes, please connect with us, and yeah, get some Reiki. Get some Reiki if it calls out to you. It's just such a gentle, beautiful process, and I think I'll get some myself this week. I feel it. It's just, yeah, it's just, you got to experience it if you haven't done so yet. It's just a beautiful experience.
All right, and I look forward to your masterclass. I can't wait. Your 3 projects you're working on just sound really, really exciting, and I can't wait to catch you on your masterclass and hear more about it.
I'm so
Yeah,
excited.
waiting for it.
Yes, I'm
Oh,
excited. I'm so proud of this work, and I really wanted to get it right, really took my time. And, because as I mentioned, like as a coach, it's one thing to teach something, it's another thing to embody it and embody because the body has a little bit of slower language and dialect than the mind. Our thoughts travel like this, right? It's like you said, the gas, the liquid, and the solid, right? So, the gases, the vibrations travel at the speed of light, the liquids
yeah,
a little bit slower in the waves, and the solids, which is our body, which is largely made out of water, it just takes a while to embody the learnings. And then when you embody that being, oh, it's a game changer. Game changer.
yay! Well, can't wait to hear more about it. Yeah, so keep us posted, and thank you to everyone watching, and thank you to you, Kasia. It's been really, really just so much fun. Thank you for this.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.